Hello everyone, in this week's video I'm drawing your gacha characters. Due to popular demand, I am once again drawing your gacha characters. I announced I would be doing this on my social media and community tab. I didn't announce it in a video this time and I am sorry about that. I've been in a bit of a crunch lately when it comes to making videos, so I didn't have time to announce it in a video. But anyways, you all sent me characters, so let's see who I'm going to be drawing. The first character was created by Frankenfangs, and their OC's name is Solora. Solora is an anxious 16-year-old girl living with her foster mom. She pretends to be laid back and carefree, but is truly scared and anxious about the powers that she's discovering she has. So let's start drawing Solora. I'm starting by sketching in Ibis Paint X on my iPad. I most often draw on my computer, but I was using my iPad for a certain reason this time around, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So for this drawing, I didn't have much for an idea. I do think Solora is really cute and I was excited to draw her. I just didn't know how I wanted to draw her or what my concept was. Since I didn't have much of an idea for a scene or a place I wanted to put her in, I thought I might just try drawing her in a pose of some sort. I have wanted to practice drawing more poses because it's something I haven't been doing a ton of recently and I'm feeling a bit rusty. So yeah, I'm pushing myself to draw a pose outside my comfort zone a bit. And I decided on this crouching pose. Crouching poses have always been tricky for me, so I thought it might be a good challenge to try. I often don't know what to do with the legs and the feet and it just gets complicated. This is my first draft and it is super rough. I'm not worried about any of the details. I just want to get the general idea in place and get a feel for how I want to proportion things. Now that I have the general idea, I'll do my cleanup sketch and get more details in place. For this drawing, I actually did 2 cleanup sketches because I was having a hard time making this look how I wanted it. But I'm only going to show you this cleanup sketch in the footage because I don't want to make you watch me draw the same thing 4 times, including line art. It might get a bit boring. For Solora's expression, I decided to make her a little nervous looking since her description did say she is anxious about her powers. But I guess it did say she tries to act laid back, so maybe I should have drawn her with that kind of expression. Well, maybe her true feelings are shining through a bit here. Like I mentioned, I have been feeling a bit rusty when it comes to drawing poses, and so I shouldn't have been surprised when I was struggling with drawing this pose. I was the most worried about the legs at the start of this process, but surprisingly they didn't give me too much trouble. What gave me the most issues was the head connecting to the body and also the straight arm resting on the knee. When I started drawing this pose, I was thinking that maybe we were kind of looking down at her, so I didn't include her neck at first. I thought her head would be covering it. However, for the way I drew the rest of the body, it doesn't really look like we're looking down at it. So the head felt a bit weird and I added a neck in my second sketch. The straight arm was giving me trouble mostly because I kept having a hard time making it look like it is resting on the knee. I was having difficulties making them look like they were on the same plane. I fixed this later by changing the angle of the feet. At first they were pointing in, but later I make them point out. So it looks like the knees are kind of going out a little bit instead of inwards. Also, I hope it's okay I decided not to include Solora's bow that's on the back of her head. It does look really cute in the gacha form, but I just couldn't quite make sense of it for this drawing. It seems like it would get in the way of the pigtails. So yeah, I decided to not include it. At times it can be tricky to translate gacha character details into different proportions and have them still make sense. So like I said, after my cleanup sketch, I did another cleanup sketch and now I'm on to line art. A lot of times when I work in Ibis Paint, I make my line art a bit more sketchy because I do not have the patience for line art when working on my iPad. I'm not sure why. I just get more lazy. And a lot of times I either use the Dip Pen Soft brush or the Pencil No. 2 brush. So like I briefly mentioned, I was drawing on my iPad for a certain reason, and that reason was because our home was going to be losing power for a bit. We needed the electrical to be worked on because of the whole house nearly catching fire thing I talked about in this video. But since we were going to be without power for a bit, I still wanted to be able to get some work done and thought, oh, well, I could just draw on my iPad for this video since I don't need power to draw on my iPad. And I did intend to draw on my iPad for all of the art in this video. However, once the whole power issue was dealt with, I felt like it'd be better to move to the computer because I was running a bit short on time and I am faster on the computer because I'm more used to it. So I filled in the base colors and started adding shading. Soloris has this really neat pink highlight in her hair and it inspired me to have there be a really strong pink light on the right side of her. And to contrast the pink, I'm going to add the teal highlight on the opposite side. Whenever I would need to transition between the two, I used purple as the transition color because the pink and teal don't really mix that well together. but the purple does a good job bridging the gap. When I was a younger artist, I would color and shade on one layer at a time, and I still kind of do this, but a lot of times if I have lighting that is affecting multiple parts of the picture at a time, I will clip the layer to my folder so it's easier to apply the effect to all the layers and I don't have to keep switching layers. One part that was a bit hard is making the highlights look consistent between the different color values. On the darker colors like the hair, it was easy to make the colors look bright and like they were light, since the color was really dark. However, on the skin, it was trickier to make the pink look like a light source while maintaining the same kind of pink. I combated this by applying the pink and also adding a bit of add glow that was blurred to make it have an even stronger glow effect. By having the pink be under the add glow, I still get a similar pink color and a glowing effect. So I'm glad I found this workaround to make the pink and teal still look like highlights. Once I finished applying the highlights, I moved on to adding shading to each part of the picture to define the forms a bit more. Because the characters' colors are so bright and fun, I made my shading be on the more saturated side. Also, this time around, I did pick the gacha characters myself. A lot of times I will randomly pick characters with a wheel or a random number generator. But this time I wanted to find some characters that inspired me or looked really fun to draw. Mostly because I wasn't in a super drawing mood and I feel like I needed inspiration. So I chose Dolores because she is really cute. I like her colors and I thought the edit Frankenfangs did to the eyes was really adorable. I really like the edited eyes. That being said, I did not have an easy time deciding who I wanted to draw. It was super difficult. I spent a couple hours looking through the submissions and trying to pick one. I was about to just randomly pick because I was being so indecisive. There were so many good characters to choose from. I was including submissions from the last round of gacha characters in this round of picking, and I had saw Dolores in the previous entries and I thought she was really cute, but then I saw her again in the new entries, and seeing her again made me kind of want to pick her. And I'm glad I did because she was really fun to draw. Her jeans were a bit out of my comfort zone. I don't draw jeans with rips in them very often. I do find them to be a bit tricky because you have to think about what the leg is doing under the fabric a bit more, since we can see it at times. Plus the rips make the clothes flow in a different way, like it hangs open and falls with gravity a bit more in the looser areas. I didn't find references for this, so I was relying on my brain and understanding of fabric, so hopefully it looks okay. Like I said, one of the things that drew me to this character was the edit of the eyes, so I wanted to draw inspiration from them for my version. I used some symmetrical rulers to draw a sparkle, and I transformed it to fit the eyes. Also, I'm trying something a bit different with the highlights. I saw this tip to make highlights look more highlighty. I don't know. It can help to add some colors around the edges of the highlight. But because the eyes are so small, you can't really tell unless I zoom in. But I know it's there. And I do think it does look kind of neat. Also, I had this star background from Ibis Paint as the background for most of this time, but I changed it at the last minute because I decided I didn't like it very much. I added some glowing stars instead, and now you'll get to see them. So here's my finished picture of Dolores. I hope you like it, Frankenfangs, and thank you so much for letting me draw your character. She's super adorable. I'm glad I pushed myself to draw a pose that was a bit outside my comfort zone. I feel like it was good practice. The next character I'm drawing was created by Starks. Her name is Zoe. Zoe is a villain, and because she has trust issues, she doesn't have many friends. She's enthusiastic and likes to do crazy or dangerous things. So let's start drawing Zoe. My idea for Zoe was to have her be in a sort of bowing pose. I think it's the top hat that made me want to do this. Zoe strikes me as one of those villains that's kind of crazy, but she's also polite the whole time, if that makes sense. I'm trying to think of an example. Kind of like the one bad guy from Glitter Force. I feel like that's an obscure reference, but it's the only example I can think of. Or maybe like Girahim from Skyward Sword. I don't know. As I was drawing this, my sister Ruth came up behind me and said, "Oh, you do that thing where you draw the hand first and then the arm." I saw a YouTube short saying to do that. And it made me realize that I do that. If I need the hand to be in a specific spot, like in this case I wanted it to be on her chest, I find it easier to place the hand and then figure out the arm. Sometimes it's easier to figure out how to connect the hand and shoulder with the arm than it is to draw the arm and then try to figure out how to get the hand there, if that makes sense. For her expression, I wanted to keep the really wide smile and make her look kind of mischievous. Because Zoe is bowing, I'm going to have all of her hair kind of fall to the left to help convey her movement. I did have a kind of hard time drawing her hair. I wanted to include the kind of crazy swirly bits that curl, but I didn't want to break the flow of things too much. Also, I was trying to draw the top hat and I'm drawing it on the wrong side at the moment. But I have learned I really don't like drawing top hats. So I got this 3D model of a top hat to help me with the placement, and ta-da! Super easy. I actually don't like this placement, so I changed it a bit later to be more forward-facing. So after my rough sketch, I move on to cleanup and line art. We're going to speed through this process a bit because the rendering for this picture took a good amount of time, and I want to focus on that a bit more. I do hope it's okay. I made a slight change to the outfit. Zoe has this bow up by her neck, and I wasn't sure if it's supposed to be tying her sweater together or if it's around her neck. Plus, since I already had the hand in that sort of spot, I felt like it'd be easier to change the bow into a choker. So yeah, once again, I'm trying to translate the details onto a larger scale. I hope that's okay. Plus, I kind of wanted her purple sweater thing to hang open so I could make it swoosh open a little bit. Once again, to add some movement. So the reason I picked Zoe is because I liked that she was a villain, but her aesthetic wasn't what you usually think of when you think villain. Her colors are light and cute, but she has a very cheeky look about her and the concept seemed really fun. Plus, for whatever reason, drawing the big grin sounded fun to draw. It's not an expression I get to use in my art very often. I really wanted to try to push the facial expression for this picture, and I hope the expression comes across. I am almost ready to start rendering Zoe, but I need a background first, and I had no idea what I wanted. I felt like I wanted a nighttime kind of setting, and I ended up finding this really neat balcony background on the asset library, and it had the exact feel I was wanting. Something kind of creepy, but also kind of fancy. To make the background fit in better, I used a gradient map to unify the colors to better match the character. Slightly tilted it and blurred it so it doesn't draw too much attention. Now I'm going to make Zoe look like she's in the dark by applying a dark blue set to multiply all over. I have this layer clipped to the folder that has all of her layers in it, that way I only draw on Zoe. My plan is to have a fairly strong light source coming from the upper right. I was going to start drawing in highlights, but I thought it might be easier to instead duplicate my shadow layer and erase where I don't want the shadow to be. For some reason, sometimes it's easier for my brain to process where I don't want shadow instead of where I do want highlights. I'm not sure why. As I stated, the light source is coming from the sort of upper right area, so I knew it would hit the outer side of her arm and the right side and kind of upper area of her head. As I was thinking about the light, I thought it might hit her chest some as well, and her head would block the light from reaching the left area of the torso. I then went around the hand and added shadow because the hand would block light from getting to some of the areas. I did have the light stop around where her chest slopes downwards because that's when the plane changes. Also, when I say plane, I kind of mean a flat surface. A lot of times I try to think of the different planes of an object when I'm shading them, like where they are sharp or round or where the angle changes, things kind of like that. For example, I have the light hit the right side or plane of her face. I often get questions about shading and how to know where to place shadows and highlights, and what's really important is actually understanding the form of the object you are shading. Take note of where things bump out or curve in, if the edge is sharp or soft. All of those things affect how the light interacts with the object. Like when shading the hand, because I have the fingers bending, they all kind of create different planes at each knuckle, especially since the light is being casted from above. To help define the hand, I applied different shading on each different part of the finger, and also deepened the shading around the knuckles to help define their shape a bit more. So once again, I'm taking note of where things sink down and come up. Also, random fact, for some reason I really liked adding the shadows for the little spikes on the bracelet. Sometimes I can forget little details like this, but it can help make things feel more real, and I really liked including that detail. Speaking of little details, I feel like this picture had a lot of different elements to shade. I spent a total of 4.5 hours on this picture, which is a bit more than usual, but it does make sense since I am drawing more of a pose and the lighting was kind of complicated. But yeah, it took a good amount of time. Plus, I didn't want to chicken out when it came to the shadows. I made sure to go back and deepen them if they needed to be, so I kind of had to shade some areas twice. Once with normal shadows, and again to deepen the shadows. I'm not sure what else to say as I'm rendering the picture. A lot of times I'll kind of talk about life stuff. The weather has been getting pretty cold. It's fall, so it's getting cold. I'm kind of tired today. I had a really bad leg ache last night, and today I'm not sure what I did to make my leg so angry. But it's been really hurting, so it made it really hard to sleep, so I'm really tired today. Hopefully I can sleep better tonight. You might all be wondering why I'm having to crunch my videos a bit. My boyfriend is gonna possibly come up and see me again, and so to make it so I don't have to work when he's here, I need to get videos done a bit early, so that's what's causing the crunch. But it's totally worth it because I really like getting to see him. He doesn't live in the same state as me, so we're doing a long distance kind of thing. Also, some of you get really surprised when I mention my boyfriend. I did kind of announce it in this video, but then if I mention him in any other videos, people are like, wait, what? When did this happen? So I'm sorry if you missed that video and I'm just kind of dropping information. Anyways, I'm onto the eyes. I wasn't sure what to do for them since they are mostly black. I decided to add a pinkish highlight in the bottom and a pointy white highlight in the top. I made them both pointy to make them feel more menacing. A lot of times I use round shapes to make them look kind of cute, but the pointy shapes make them feel more like mischievous. I did like how the shading was going, but to add a bit more interest, I added a pink light coming from the lower left, and I feel like this helped a ton. It gave the character a bit more form and helped things from getting too dark. Plus, I love having light sources that kind of contrast. I probably overuse it in my art. Oh, also, I decided to make the white highlight be a bit brighter so it has more impact, especially on the hair to make it look a bit more shiny. And here's the finished picture. Hopefully I succeeded in making it have the sinister vibes. Thank you so much to Starks for letting me draw Zoe. She was super fun to draw. I do think it's a bit funny how different the vibes are for these two pictures. They feel very different from one another. If you enjoyed this video, I recommend watching this video where I draw more of your gacha characters. Also, thank you so much to my fantastic YouTube members and Patreon patrons. Your support means a ton to me. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!